So I talked a little bit about development. I want to add a little more on that because this also has to deal with why we have to help our kids be able to navigate between not going to the playground and be able to understand why there's rules and why there's policies. It's hard for a 4-year-old to understand, but we expect an 8, 10, 15-year-old to be able to understand a little bit more. But developmentally, that 15-year-old might still be operating from a very low developmental level, and so they're going to be arguing. And I'm going to get this question real quick. It says, when does healing come? Over time. And I know that's probably a nebulous answer, but trauma happens for a lot of our kids over a perpetual amount of time, an entire early childhood, 20 months, 30 months, 5 years, 14 years. I'm working with I'm mentoring a young lady who has had trauma for 14 years, from 0 to 14. She's 24 right now, and she's still in a deep level of healing. Has she gotten better? Absolutely. But it doesn't happen overnight. And the hardest thing I have to say is that there is no magic purple pill. There is no overnight success in this. Some of our kids are going to bounce back in a couple of months. Some kids I definitely see within 6 months. When we implement this kind of strategy and this kind of thinking and this kind of understanding with our kids, I see kids within 6 months really make a change. Now, does that mean that they're automatically in 6 months back to being an Andy? Absolutely not. Trauma never goes away. So I see, again, big changes can happen, but that perpetual healing process does happen over the developmental spectrum. All right, so I hope that gives you hope, but it also kind of gives you some reality around that. So when we look at development, we want to look at a child's cognitive development, language, academic, social, physical, and emotional development. Cognitively, what we have to look at is that they're very concrete in their thinking. They see things as black and white. There's no gray area. And so if Billy raises his hand and Billy goes, Mrs. Jones, is the field trip still on for Friday? And maybe there's been some planning issues and you just don't know. So Mrs. Jones goes, well, Billy, we're going to have to wait and see. See, that is not a concrete answer. And Billy is going to flip out over that because that means his mind cannot compute that. He can't register that. Life has to either be yes or no, good, bad, yes, no, black, white. There's no gray area. Because see, trauma happens by surprise. And so when kids go into a very concrete black and white type of thinking, then life becomes a little bit more secure and safe. And so their brains truly get wired that way. That's the only way that they can be able to maintain their survival. It's also important that our kids we see that they're gifted. Some of our kids are brilliant. I mean, like Einstein material, right? They are geniuses on some level. But also on some other levels, they've missed a lot. So there's pockets that they're brilliant in. There's pockets that they're deficient in. So even though a child may be sitting there talking to you about, astrophysics, and he's 9, you're thinking, my gosh, I have a genius on my hands. But the next minute, they're out in the playground and they can't figure out how to be nice to the kid next to them. So they're just brilliant in certain areas. And a lot of our kids have had to develop their cognitive abilities and become very resourceful, more street smart to survive. And then we look at other areas, though, and they're completely deficient.